Big exciting news for your afternoon. Boy, it's absolutely categorically exciting after this channel debuted the Purple Power Caucus earlier today. 150,000 views in just a few hours as people line up to say, hey, enough is enough. I demand bigger FPUC. I demand bigger stimulus checks. I demand bigger hazard pay. It's enough is enough. Nancy Pelosi appearing on morning news saying, you know what, I think we're close to something. Guess what? We're really close to getting our money, and we're being close to demanding a bigger sum of money than the measly little carrot you've been offering us. It's very exciting news. It's very timely news, and this is Afternoons LALATE. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I'm here, you're here, and I don't know where to. Oh, yeah, Nancy Pelosi's doing talk interviews because that's all she really does. Well, guess what? We're getting to work, unlike the rest of them, and we're getting our stimulus, we're getting our hazard pay, we're getting our FPUC. It's a great, exciting afternoon, as 150,000 of you have already tuned in upwards of a few hours to the programming on this channel to talk about the Purple Power delegates and the Purple Power Caucus. Congratulations. Go to the front of the channel, subscribe, because no one is getting you closer to the finish line than this channel. This is the channel that really cares to get you money. We're not just reporting on what Nancy Pelosi says on the morning news, because who really cares what she says? We're focused on getting you money, getting you the big and bold and beautiful stimulus check that you're owed, whether it sounds like sort of a soap opera, and getting you the hazard pay and the FPUC that you're owed retroactively. Enough is enough. It's time for someone to stand up, and we're standing up, and I really appreciate you for tuning in. In this video, I will be going over the stimulus amount of checks that are on the table and why we, as the Purple Power Caucus for stimulus, are bringing a new table to the room. That will be Purple Power check analysis. Then I'll be going over hazard pay. I'll be going over why the table was removed from the room for hazard pay and why we're bringing it back in. We're not allowing you to say no hazard pay. A pandemic's raging on. Essential workers are viewers of this channel. They need to be paid hazard pay. What's going on here? Enough is enough. Finally, FPUC, that retroactive benefits that people want to do retroactive to like 2 o'clock this afternoon. Just, let's do retroactive to yesterday. No, you're doing retroactive to after July. Or sort of like how your hairstyle is retroactive. Did I say retroactive? It sounds like it's on fire. It sounds retroactive. It's lighting up. It's sort of like my hair right now. So if you've not, stay with me. There's a lot of details in this video, so stay with me and let's get to the breaking news. The breaking news is that there is no deal, there is no agreement, there is no agreement to deal, and there's a Senate closing and a House already closed. So how can someone sit around like Nancy Pelosi on Morning Talk News and say, I just sort of think there's going to be a law tomorrow? Yeah, and I think that maybe you'll change your hairstyle tomorrow. Wishful thinking. Needless to say, because there is no deal, because there's no bill, because there's no language, because there's absolutely nothing but a lot of hot air, guess what? Here comes Purple Power Caucus. Here comes Purple Power Caucus check and FPUC and hazard pay. It's absolutely categorically incredible. And just in a few hours, 150,000 viewers have already tuned in to say, enough is enough. I demand more money, and I'm going to be loud, and I'm going to be heard. So let's go over the details right now. How much of each item, and how much you should vocalize. One thing I make very clear on this channel is I am here to educate. I'm always here to empower, to motivate, and to inspire, but I'm never here to be your voice. You're your own voice. So if you think that my numbers are a little bit too low and you want to go higher, you go higher. If you think my numbers are too high, you go lower. Ultimately, what I'm doing is educating you and informing you about the process and what has happened so you can make your own informed decision. Let's get to it right now. First, a check. The check. As an individual, you're entitled to a stimulus check. You were supposed to get multiple stimulus checks under CARES Act 1. And at that time, they had come up with a number. I've not done this a lot, but this is what I'm doing right today. I'm going over the minutia that you actually may have never heard. Where did the $1,200 number come from? Where did that $1,200 number come from? It reportedly was pulled out of the air when it was created, the $1,200 number. It certainly predates this channel. It was devised by a bunch of people at a last minute in early March. And at the time, they said, we need a number for stimulus check. We'll just choose $1,200. Okay. Shortly thereafter, some Republicans thought the number was too high. Some Democrats thought the number was too low. Ultimately, it was just a number out of the sky. It was not based upon any economic data. Jerome Powell, the Federal Reserve, didn't say, hey, I think I've done some calculations. It should be $1,200. It was just a number that just went sort of, poof, there's $1,200. It's just, what does $1,200 represent? And that is where that number has come from. Literally nowhere. So it's important for you to understand that no one said that $1,200 was based upon your economic level or based upon your savings account. It was based upon nothing. At the time, they said, okay, you need a stimulus check for every month you're on lockdown. Let's understand that parameter. That's very important to understand. At the time, they said stimulus checks should be tied to the fact that you're on lockdown, not tied to the fact that you're losing your car, losing your home, or losing whatever. It's tied to the fact you're on lockdown. Okay. So you went on a lockdown for 3 months because they told you to go on a lockdown, not because you wanted to, but because they put you on lockdown. And what did you get? You got one stimulus check. Okay, one strike against them. You got one stimulus check or you got no stimulus check. That's potentially 2 strikes against them. Then what happened was after the lockdown started to be released and lifted around May, then they said, you know what, you need more stimulus checks because now that the lockdowns are lifted, you've lost your job or you're unable to pay rent or you're unable to pay utilities. At that point, they said as of May, your stimulus checks are tied to your economic environment that you're surviving or not surviving in because of what had happened before. So it's important to understand if you were in trouble financially in May, you were entitled to a stimulus check. It's ironic that I have to even describe that because that is the parameter by which everything was done in May. The EIDL loan and the EIDL grant all said that you had to represent and warrant and disclose to SBA that as of May, you were impacted by the pandemic and that's why you need this money. Same thing for unemployment. You had to say, I was impacted because of the pandemic. I need money. So as of May, it was no longer tied to the fact that you're on lockdown. It was tied to the fact that you needed money. You were financially struggling. And in June, it was the same way. And in July, it was the same way. And to today, it is still the same way. So if you have been financially struggling because of the pandemic from May to the present, you're entitled to a stimulus check every single month. If you're on lockdown in the month of March, April, May, which presumably you were, almost every single county and state and city across this country, almost all of them was on lockdown for 3 months, you're entitled to those 3 months of stimulus checks. So at this point, you're sitting back and saying, well, that's a lot of months of stimulus checks. Yes, it is. You're owed it. You are owed it. So then we go to the amount of the stimulus check. Where did $1,200 come from? It came from nowhere. Where did $2,000 come from? That came from the Harris-Sanders-Mackey bill, which was written in May, and it looked at unemployment, and it looked at the financial situation of the country and said, $1,200 doesn't cut it. Senator Harris, now the VP nominee, and potentially the VP herself, if she wins with the Harris with the Biden-Harris ticket, said $1,200 is not a large enough payment per month to pay the bills. That's what she said in May. What's ironic is we sit here in October, and this, again, I have not said until today's video, this is all great new stuff right here, is that Jerome Powell says that he's worried about stagflation. Stagflation is what you see. You just don't know what it's called. Prices going higher. Groceries going higher, cost of milk going higher, eggs going higher. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It depends on where you buy your milk, for example. In LA, some places milk is like $3 or $3.50 a gallon. Some places now trying to push $5.50 a gallon. Eggs used to be, this much, and now they're that much. It doesn't cost. I asked Sir Lloyd about this. I'm like, Sir Lloyd, does it cost you more to push out some eggs than that? Well, no, sorry, eggs don't come from cows. Does it cost you? Is it because you're more to push out some milk than it did before? No, 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 no. This is just push, and then there's the milk. Were you getting paid more to push out your milk before? No, but I do have a cowlack now, so I have insurance on the cowlack. Other than that, it shouldn't cost more to pay for milk. But what's important to understand is that your stimulus checks now should be more than your stimulus checks then, because it costs more to live now than it costs more to live then. The cost of living across the country is rising. This is the COLA discussion, which I had in a video about 3 or 4 days ago. My Social Security, SSDI, SSI, and Social Security and Railroad Benefits viewers understand COLA very well. Social Security says that they need to raise the COLA index next year, but they only want to raise it 1.5%. No, Representative DeFazio out of Oregon, a Democrat, says the COLA, the cost of living, has astronomically gone through the roof in the last few months, especially for seniors. So with that, this is like Captain Obvious. So that with a Democrat who's in Nancy Pelosi's house saying that it costs a lot more money to live now than it did before the pandemic, why is the stimulus check now the same amount as it was before at the beginning of the pandemic? Can't be. It can't be. 10-minute mark. I got a lot more coming. Let's get to FPUC and hazard pay. And let me continue with check in a second. What I also want to say with check is that if you're an adult dependent, you're entitled to a full stimulus check. If you're an adult dependent, you did not get a first stimulus check at all. So are you owed a stimulus check retroactively? You should certainly make that contention. If you did not tune into early mornings LALATE or mornings LALATE or 28, what I debuted today is the Purple Power Caucus. The Purple Power Caucus is you going on social media and organizing as a group and saying, I am either Purple Power check, or Purple Power FPUC, or Purple Power Hazard Pay. Or you can be several of them. Hashtag Purple Power check, hashtag Purple Power FPUC, or hashtag Purple Power Hazard Pay. Going on social media saying, you know what, I want to be heard, and $1,200 is ridiculous. Now, you may have been doing this before. We're just organizing it more conservatively. And that by doing those hashtags and by tweeting that message, other people that want to be in that caucus and are in that caucus see your message and retweet your message. You interact with each other, and then the next step of it is that we start to reach out to representatives. You start to reach out to representatives and say, hey, we are part of the Purple Power. We're part of the caucus in the Purple Power for check. We're part of the Purple Power caucus in Purple Power for hazard pay. And we don't think these numbers that you're doing for your proposals make any sense. We're owed a lot more money. Ultimately, you could be reaching out to new elected officials after election night. You could be reaching out to existing elected officials. And the message is that we're loud and we're going to be heard, and we're not going to agree to these measly little things. And it will work. It will work. I've done this before. I did this with EIDL loan, and I did this with EIDL grants. People who didn't get EIDL grants, people who didn't get EIDL loans, but who were entitled to this money, I had them get very loud, get very pushy, and get very professional and very informed, and go at all the different angles. Going to SBA, going to congressional leaders. I had people contacting 20, 30 congressional leaders a day. I would sit on camera and I would read the congressional leaders and call and give big praises to the ones that responded affordably and said, thank you for reaching out. I will help you. I will reach out. I will help you. And then I called out the ones that absolutely did nothing for them. And Cory Booker, Senator Harris, the ones that did nothing for the viewers of this channel. I said, hey, these people, I got 10 viewers who have reached out to you. Not one of you have responded. So that's how I went through it, and it worked. I got loan after loan after loan approved because we got very pushy and very loud, and it works. Sitting back and saying, check back with me next year doesn't work. Being pushy and being professional and being informed works. Now, FPUC, hazard pay. Let's get to them right now. Purple Power FPUC. Let's talk about that caucus. How much money? When are the money? And let's go through the details. Ultimately, we all know what is not an appropriate FPUC. We all know that $100, $200, $300 a week is not an appropriate FPUC. We all understand $700 of FPUC per week is not a normal price. So it's somewhere in the $400 to the $600 range. Ultimately, you can decide where you want the narrative to be. I'll tell you what have been the options and what have been on the table when the table's in the room. Minutia, $400 a week. Pelosi, $600 a week. Problem solvers, $450 a week, and then going to $600 a week, sort of like a hybrid. And the second part of the package was a confusing mathematical calculation. Then there's the retroactive provisions. What I would say, my opinion, you can have your own, is the following. One, it should be a normal number. There were weeks of recording in this channel, which were back in about June, in which Mnuchin wanted it to be some monstrous calculation in which the state does this and state does that. Remember that time? It's a long time ago. It's a few months ago. But I don't want that to be a situation. It should be a normal weekly amount. It shouldn't be this strange calculation. Second, there shouldn't be a threshold on it. My LWA viewers were really screwed by by having that threshold of $100. So there shouldn't be a threshold on it. Third, it should be $400 to $600 a week. I mean, there really should be no other range of it. I don't see it above it, and I don't see it below it. And fourth, it needs to be retroactive to when it expired the first time. This thing of doing retroactive to, yesterday or, this morning, it's just ridiculous. It's sort of insulting. I mean, do you think I not know what I'm owed? Do you think I not remember that I wasn't paid FPUC for the month of August or the month of September? So that's where I think that should land. Next, hazard pay. Hazard pay. And before I get to hazard pay, one thing I want to say very clearly is that all these items do not conflict with one another. Of everything that I've covered on stimulus on this channel, nothing conflicts with one another with exception of sometimes a PPP with something else. Nothing conflicts generally. Let's go to hazard pay. Hazard pay. You're entitled to hazard pay. $10,000. $10,000. Hazard pay has a lot of provisions and a lot of nuances. Let me go over them right now and tell you my opinion, but ultimately you have your opinion. There were two types of hazard pays that we saw during this entire path. The first one was the Romney plan, and the second one was the Pelosi plan. The Romney plan differed in the amount of money and the application process. The Pelosi plan differed in the application process and the amount of money. Where this is my opinion about the situation. First, hazard pay should be applied to by the employee, not the employer. I think it's categorically insane and categorically troubling and categorically a problem if the employer applies for it. Under the Pelosi plan, the employer may apply for it, and if they don't apply for it, you don't get it. That makes no sense. It doesn't make sense, one, because the employer will simply just not do it. They don't have to do it. Two, the employer may not be around to do it because the employer may be bankrupt. Three, the employer may be unreachable. Four, the employer may be uncooperative because they fired you or laid you off or furloughed you, and so why are they going to do something for you after they didn't help you in the first circumstance? The Romney plan requires the employer to apply for you and pays the employer to apply for you. I think that's categorically great, but I don't think it solves the problem because ultimately what will happen is that some employers just don't exist. If the business is closed, the employer will not apply. How can you have the employer, which is, let's say, an LLC or corporation, apply for you if they don't exist anymore? They've gone under. And so you should not be dependent upon someone else. It should be you applying, and you should apply to the program with your pay stubs. I think the process should derive from you and your pay stubs. Second, it should also extend to independent contractors. Had a lot of questions about this when I first started recording hazard pay. It should not be dependent upon whether you're a W-2 or an independent contractor. So if you're an Uber or Lyft driver, you should be able to apply for it. If you are, because you actually qualify for it, but because you're an independent contractor, it makes it sort of a gray area. It's like, does he get it? Does he not get it? And you should be able to apply for it. Next, the amount of the money. It should be tied to the events from a certain date to an event forward. Nancy Pelosi's bill put it starting in January. I don't think that makes sense, and I don't want to cheat anyone out on it, but I don't think it makes sense. I think it should have started around February or March and should go forward and should go all the way up to the present. Next, the hourly amount has had a disparity. Pelosi's plan was $13 an hour. Romney's plan was, I think it was like $10 an hour. And then there was a cap and there was a ceiling and there was this and that. There are certain ways that you do this. Pelosi's plan was to give $10,000 if you reach that threshold, if you made $100,000 or less last year, and $5,000 if you made more than that. Ultimately, what's important to understand is that it's a lot of money. and you're entitled to that money. And you're going to be working as an essential frontline worker in the fall. And you may be. And that money is going to be needed because you're going to be risking your life. With that, you see how exciting this is. You see how empowering this is, and you see how much money there is out for you. I did not even get to EIDL grant and EIDL loan in this video. I'll try to do it in the next video. Coming up after this, I will be going over in Check 2 on Purple, the new show that follows after this before McConnell versus Trump. In Purple, I'll be going over Pelosi's comments today, and I'll show you that ultimately we don't care so much what she's saying. We're focused on the numbers going forward. All right, let me answer some of your incredible questions and comments from yesterday. Lorraine, vote them all out. Diane, I would like to see them not get paid until the people get taken care of. Amen. The dude, that's a screen date. I've never been so disappointed in government in my life. Melissa, how do we as a people have become devalued for months? What do we do, LALATE, as the people of the United States? We need to override this corruption. Yes, they tried to devalue you. They try to use money on things that don't concern you and then not pay you much of anything and make it look like they're helping the American people. They're not. Mary, we need stimulus right now. Tina, there's a game for Congress. Jeff, I think it's about putting a class action lawsuit. FUBAR 2020. We shouldn't have to wait this long for stimulus. Thomas Duffy, LALATE, you are the best positive to help all Americans. God bless you. I really appreciate that, Thomas. Stacey Harris, let's go Purple Power. Push, push, push. Stimulus now. Positivity breeds positivity. It does. And it breeds progress and finality. Let's make them notice us, family. Amen. Ava Swoop, the stimulus bill should have been done back in July 30th. August 1st. All they care about is getting their reelection, their paycheck, doing nothing. Candy Carpenter. Let's stay positive. Kathy Miller. He needs a new executive order. William Carger. Understand, just because I didn't mention executive orders, just because I didn't mention seats for stimulus, just because I didn't mention CMS in this video, MSC in this video, doesn't mean that is not part of our agenda. It is. I can't mention everything in every video. Tonya, this entire situation needs to get done. I've noticed children with adult family. Nancy Pelosi why we don't have a refrigerator to put this kind of food in the fridge. You have incredible comments and more. I can't go over all of them in this video, but boy, with 150,000 viewers in just a few hours pushing the Purple Power Caucus, you see how this is heating up very quickly and in a very good way. So go to the front of this channel, subscribe, because by subscribing, you're part of this community. You're part of getting alerts when a new video goes live. There's a lot of crap stuff out there, really is. And all they're doing is selling false narratives and not helping you and telling you about, when to buy a Tesla stock. And just, come on already. Let's get this done. Let's get your money. Let's get it here, and let's get it right now. Also, like this video. Coming up next is Purple, the new hit show in the time slot right after this, a continuation of Check. As always, stay informed, stay smiling, and stay with LA for more.